What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to SLC Puck. It's good to be with you, man. Hey, today is June 9th. It's a Sunday, and I hope everybody enjoyed a toasty day along the Wasatch Front. I think the temperature today was right around the 90s, and I know we went out and played a little pickleball today. I took the shirt off, hoping to get a little sunburn on me, trying to look tall, dark, and handsome for the summer. We'll see. Maybe just dark. We'll see if I can just get one of those two. That would be great, or one of those three, I should say. But anyway, we're here on SLC Puck. The Stanley Cup Final is underway. Florida won Game 1 3-0 last night. We'll talk about that in just a second. But before I get into that, let me just ask you guys a question here. And by the way, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Merch, slcpuck.shop, all that good stuff. But let me ask you guys a question. Do you know what your Uber passenger rating is? Have you looked? I just looked at mine, and I was actually pretty pleased. My Uber passenger rating is 4.95 stars out of 5 stars, which is a pretty good score, I'd say. I'd like to know how I missed that 0.05, but regardless, I looked on Lyft as well. I have a perfect 5-star rating on Lyft as a passenger. So if you happen to drive rideshare and you get me as a client, as a customer, as a passenger, you should know you're in for a good ride. You're gonna have a good chat. We're gonna have a lot of fun. But the reason why I ask is because evidently this was something that the Utah Hockey Club brass has been asking the NHL Draft prospects at the NHL Draft Combine this week. They have their, not only do they do their measurables, they have them run, jump, lift weights, all that stuff. There's an interview session as well. And apparently that was one of the questions they asked. It's kind of been going around on Twitter, a little bit of fun. I, once again, was not invited to the NHL Draft Combine for the 15th consecutive year. Despite being the strongest I've ever been and in the best shape I've ever been at 32, that still has evaded me. But for a group of guys, this is their time. A group of guys that a bunch of them born in 2005, 2006. So NHL Draft is coming up this month. Utah Hockey Club picking 6th overall. I think the NHL Draft, especially this first one, is going to be a big deal for the Utah Hockey Club. I think we're going to see them hand whoever that young man, who probably won't be me, unfortunately, whoever that fella ends up being, I think they're going to hand him a jersey with the placeholder logo on it, Utah Hockey Club. Should be a lot of, or maybe they won't, because I think this round of voting for the team name ends on the 21st, and I believe the draft is around the 28th or so, 27, 28, 29, something like that. So maybe they'll have the team name. Maybe they'll just surprise the world and have something to give the guy. Who knows? We'll see how that goes. But Utah drafting 6th overall. And the feeling, and I've said this before on the show, and I'm right, and the hockey community at large agrees with me. The feeling is that Utah really needs to use this draft to draft a defenseman, their defenseman of the future, so to speak. Now, like I said, these guys were born in 2005, 2006. So my math tells me some of these guys are just barely turning 18 years old. Some of them might be as young as 17 in this draft. So I think it's more than likely they're going to draft a guy who probably won't play at the Delta Center next year. A guy who will probably continue to play at the junior level for at least a year or two. Utah will have his the rights to him and be able to call him up when the time comes. But anyway, that's what they're looking at because, as I've also said on the show, if you guys are paying attention, Utah right now has 0 defensemen signed to their roster. They'll probably bring a few guys back in restricted free agency, maybe try to make a splash, sign a bigger name when free agency rolls around in July. But this is a good draft to draft a defenseman in. And from what I can tell from my research, I've been looking at mock drafts. I've been reading draft profiles. My guy on, I almost said Instagram. My guy on Twitter, Jazz Jargon, his real name's Spencer, by the way. He's been doing a great job kind of doing these prospect profiles. He does like a nice thread on the guys. This is, by the way, how cool is this game? I've already seen like 4 fights out of the corner of my eye right now. I think I got the settings just right for something fun in the background. But my guy Spencer has been doing these draft profiles on prospects, guys who might land with Utah. They're really informative. They're really good. I really appreciate Spencer for putting those together. I have also done my own research in preparation for today's show. You're welcome. And I think what we're looking at 6 overall, first overall, that's a given. It's going to be Macklin Celebrini. He's the phenom, the star from Boston University. He's going to go first overall to the San Jose Sharks. After that, the Chicago Blackhawks pick second, Anaheim Ducks at third, Columbus Blue Jackets at 4, Montreal Canadiens at 5, and the Utah at 6, followed by the Ottawa Senators. But from what it looks like, I think there's there's kind of like 3 guys that I see over and over again in these mock drafts, guys that the experts feel are going to be available when Utah picks at 6. And I thought we just talk a little bit about these guys because I think I think there's a good chance that one of them will end up in a Utah uniform at some point, maybe not next year, but eventually. And I got to tell you, as I dove into these profiles here, I went to thehockeywriters.com to read about these guys and found other places too. A lot of these profiles got me pretty excited. I'm like, God, one guy in particular, I'm like, oh my gosh, if we get this guy, I'm going to be so. And if we get this guy, and he ends up being who they say he could be, I'm like, oh, we're set. This is good. We're going to be in a good place there. So the 3 that I've seen. And again, I'm not going to go in any order here. I'll do the guy I like most last. But the 3 I'm seeing are Sam Dickinson, who is a defenseman with the London Knights of the OHL right now. The other guy I'm seeing is Zeev Buyam. I believe that's how you say it, Zeev Buyam. Even with a name like that, you'd think he'd be from like some fun exotic place. He's from Orange County, California. He's from Laguna Niguel, and he plays for the University of Denver right now. And then the other guy I really like, the other is Zane Perek. And I thought his name would be hard to say. This is what I like about these guys, is their names really aren't that hard to say once you get it. Buyam, Perek, Dickinson. If I had to pick one guy just based on the name, though, whichever one's easiest to say, it would be Sam Dickinson, obviously. But I think they want a little bit more than that when it comes to picking a guy 6th overall in the NHL draft. But let's dig in first to Sam Dickinson. And I think as the draft gets closer, we'll take even closer look at these guys. But for now, I think just like a little cursory research on these guys might be helpful to you. So Sam Dickinson, he's from Toronto. He's 6'2". He's 199 pounds apparently. He's the beefiest guy of the 3 on this list. The way people see him is, he really does. He's taken a big step offensively, but for the most part, he's just a really well-rounded defenseman. He's got really high IQ. He plays really well against the rush in transition. He's very comfortable in the defensive zone. He's great at clearing the puck out. He can sort of push guys away, keep them at distance. He's not afraid to get physical, use his body. I almost said the F word there. Lay people out, whether, it says here, whether it's an open ice hit or along the boards, Dickinson imposes his will and makes life difficult for the competition. Love that. That's what you want from a defenseman, a guy with bite, a guy with grit. He's not really a flashy guy, but he's a pretty good skater. He can attack with force when need be. He knows when to get the play going, when to start the breakout and get things going in a good rhythm. People also really like his wrist shot, his one-timer. He's got a nice shot, and it says here, he's like a guaranteed top 10 pick. His strengths, they say, again, is skating, mobility, and transition, getting out of the defensive zone towards the opposing team net. He's a physical guy. He's got a great shot. But the IQ is what you see over and over again when you look at this guy's prospect report. But I think what they're saying as far as improvements, and this is from the hockeywriters.com, is this guy can be a little too patient from time to time. Sometimes it would be best if he just get going. And I'll tell you, that's what you notice the most if you go to the difference between like a Grizzlies game and an NHL game is how fast those guys make decisions with the puck. It's crazy, and they can get the puck in the exact right, perfect place at the exact the craziest speed. it's really kind of fun to watch. And to me, that's the big difference between lower level professional hockey and the big dogs, the tippy top, is just how quickly they can move the play around. But they want him to continue making improvements on offense, and they see him as sort of reminiscent of Aaron Ekblad, who plays for the Florida Panthers, is in the Stanley Cup Final right now. They say he could be something of that ilk in as his career goes along. So let's dig right in now into our boy Zeev Buium. Okay. Again, you'd think like, okay, this guy's got to be from wherever, you know. Again, he's from Laguna Niguel, plays for the University of Denver, and he's someone people are getting really excited about. He's had a great year with the University of Denver. He doesn't play a really flashy style, but he still kind of is a bit sneaky. He's got high IQ. He's a great skater. He's got nice speed. He can move up and down and laterally, which is like something that I think really separates the good players from the great players, is their ability to be agile, to be lateral, to go left and right. My favorite player in the NHL, guy I'll talk about a little bit more as we dig into these, is Cale Makar, who is probably the best skater to ever live or ever skate on the planet Earth. And that's something he does incredibly well. And so to consider someone else who does that, you know, at a high level, I think is going to be a lot of fun. But what really got Buium on everybody's radar is the fact that he is producing offensively at an incredible level, especially for a defenseman. He's producing points at a 1.22 points per game pace. That means he's responsible for a goal, maybe more, every single game. And that's the highest for a defenseman in NCAA history. A big reason why they say he's got like a nice little accurate shot, but he's an excellent passer, great skater. Again, sounds a lot like Cale Makar. He's strong in the rush. He's got great defensive IQ as well. They're saying he could be a little bit more physical, be a little bit tougher when it comes to some puck battles and races. He's 6 feet. He's 183 pounds, so he's a little bit smaller than Sam Dickinson, and I think maybe that reflects in the way he plays. But again, the HockeyWriters.com was really big on him. But I want to get to the guy that I was most excited to read about. Okay, Zane Parekh. Let's talk about Zane Parekh. If we get Zane Parekh, and his name is spelled kind of interesting. I'm glad I figured out how to pronounce it. It's Zayne, which I believe is the same as the One Direction guy. Wasn't there a guy named Zane on One Direction? I missed that. That's that. I'm 32, so I was about 10 years too old for that sensation to really capture me the way it could have. His last name Parekh, Parekh, Parekh is how you pronounce that. He's from Ontario, Canada. 6'1", 183 pounds, so he's probably physically right in between those two guys I talked about. Right shot defenseman. But he has been shredding it up right now in the Ontario Hockey League, which is a junior league up there in Canada. He set the record for most goals from a defenseman age 17 or younger. So he's a really young guy. He was born in 2006. He's born February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, 2016. He's scored 21 goals in the first 37 games of the year. So he is an offensive-minded defenseman. He's also been quarterbacking their power play unit. But what people really like about him is just his offensive game as a defenser. He's got soft hands. He's a great puck handler. I mean, people just love the way he gets up and down the ice. They feel like he doesn't have a great sense of urgency, though. So the pace probably needs to pick up, especially at the NHL level. Apparently there have been some times when he's been slow getting back on defense, and getting a turnover deep in the offensive zone or wherever. If you're a defenseman, you're the last line of defense. You got to hustle back. And apparently that's not something he is known for. But, that can get better. You get the right coach, barking orders at you in the right way. You can definitely get a lot better at that. So they're saying he's got a great hockey IQ. He's a great puck handler. He can make plays. He can shoot well from all areas of the offensive zone. Great skater. But, again, areas of improvement, it says here. Defensive zone urgency and a habit of lackadaisical play at times. But here's the part that got me really excited about this. And this was written by, I'm going to mispronounce this guy's name, Jordan Orth. with the Hockey Writers. And check out the Hockey Writers. They've got some great stuff. But they're saying that a good comparison for Parekh is a mix of Cale Makar, Adam Fox, and Quinn Hughes. And to that I say, holy cow, that gets me pretty excited. His skating ability is reminiscent of both Makar and Hughes, while his offensive skill set is comparable to all three of those NHLers. It's funny, they have a risk-reward analysis where they rate how high of a risk this guy would be out of 5 stars and how much the reward would be out of 5 stars. He's rated as a 1 out of 5 risk and a 5 out of 5 reward, so a lot of upside there. Again, this guy's really young. He's got a little bit of work to do, a little bit of maturity, it sounds like, to get ready to play in the NHL. But when I see a guy who's compared by a hockey expert as having skating abilities reminiscent of Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, plays for the Vancouver Canucks, I go, oh my. I absolutely love the way Cale Makar plays the game. I think he's transformed the defenseman position. He's made it look cool to play defense, which I think was hard to do. A lot of people liken him to Bobby Orr. They think he could be on that level when all's said and done. Cale Makar has already won a bunch of awards. He's won the Norris Trophy. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's won the Conn Smythe. He's super accomplished young player. And so when I see the potential for Utah to get a guy like that, yeah, it revs my engine big time. So, for me, having just barely starting to dive into NHL Draft, again, it's later this month. Zane Parex's the guy at the top of my list right now, and I'm hoping he's available when Utah picks at 6. But there's still hockey to be played right now, and I think if you're new to the game, if you're trying to get excited about hockey, the fact that the NHL is coming to Utah, that we're going to see the best players in the world, now this week is a really, really, really good time to start getting into hockey because the Stanley Cup Final are on right now. Stanley Cup Finals is on right now, and it's the class of the NHL going toe-to-toe. The Edmonton Oilers, Florida Panthers, they played Game 1 already. As I said, Florida took Game 1, 3-0. Their goaltender, Sergei Bobrovsky, had an unbelievable game. He had 32 saves in a shutout. I think I saw he was one of the first goalies in like 40 years to start a Stanley Cup Final with a shutout. And here's the crazy thing. I think sometimes you see, and I know Edmonton has done this once or twice where they've tried different goalies in the playoffs, just in terms of who's hot, who's playing well, who's good, who's not. Florida has rocked with Bobrovsky every minute of their playoffs run this year, and he's been unbelievable. He's got a save percentage of over 90%. I think it's about 91%. And he's facing a team right now that has tons of offensive firepower. And again, if you're new to hockey, this is a really good time to get into it because right now, the guy who many people have considered to be the most talented hockey player in the history of the sport is in this final. He's trying to win his first Stanley Cup ever, and he's trying to be a national hero. Edmonton, obviously, in Canada, going for a Stanley Cup. You might find this interesting. A Canadian team has not won the Stanley Cup in 31 years. Do you know which team won that Stanley Cup? I'm sure you don't. I'm talking to my studio audience here. The last Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup was the Montreal Canadiens in 1993. Now you'll find this funny. If you watch the episode I did with my mom, you'll find this funny. Their goalie for that Stanley Cup run, Patrick Roy, who my mom likes to call Patrick Roy just to make me mad because his name is spelled R-O-Y. He's French-Canadian, though, so it's Roy, but my mom likes to say Roy just to get me going. It's her favorite hockey joke. I'm glad she got to drop that in that episode. If you haven't seen that episode, go ahead and check it out. It was a lot of fun to have my mom on for Mother's Day. But back to Stanley Cup Final talk. Game 1 was a lot of fun to watch. The feeling was that Edmonton outplayed Florida in that game. And I do kind of see that. I recorded it on YouTube TV. I just watched it again. I do get why people say that. They did outshoot Florida significantly. They outshot them 32-18. But I think Florida played exactly the way they wanted to. I think you watch Florida, They're a very physical team. They don't have the same kind of skill first guys that Edmonton does. They out-hit the Oilers 57-32, blocked a lot of shots, made things really hard for Edmonton to get going. Florida, and here's what Florida does really well. They're aggressive. They hit a lot. They play a very physical game, but they also have what it takes to sort of support that when things go awry. Their penalty kill is really good. I believe they've prevented a goal in 34 of the last 36 penalties that they've had to kill. And for Edmonton, who's made their bread and butter on the penalty or on the power play this playoffs, that's going to be the story of the series. The other story of the series is, can Connor McDavid win this Stanley Cup? I think he's won the MVP like 3 years at some point in his career. He's still a pretty young guy. He's won the scoring title like 4 times, I believe. I'm trying to think of like an NBA comparison, and I kind of think it's like LeBron James a little bit. Forget about LeBron, the move from Cleveland to Miami. I think they're it was that big when LeBron won his first title for him. It was sort of like, okay, now I've got this thing on my resume. I've got all the individual awards, but now I've got the big one. I've got my name on the cup. I can solidify myself as one of the all-time greats. Connor McDavid should be an all-time great, and he will be. He's going to be remembered as probably the most talented hockey player ever. He's crazy fast. His ability to puck handle, he's got a great shot. He is the most gifted hockey player ever. But, we say this all the time with John Stockton and Karl Malone. It don't mean a thing if you ain't got that ring. And this is his best chance that he's had yet to win a Stanley Cup. He's got a good cast of supporting staff around him. He's got Leon Draisaitl, who has also won an MVP award. He's also a generational star. Zach Hyman, who has been the leading goal scorer in the playoffs. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who is a former number 1 overall pick, who's kind of found a nice place for himself in the hockey world. Those guys are all Edmonton Oilers. Those guys are all trying to score on Sergei Bobrovsky. But Bobrovsky, they call him Bob, and I like that. As someone who struggles to pronounce names, keeping it simple, that's what I like. But so far, Bob has been a W-A-L-L, a wall, a brick wall. And again, that's going to be the story. It's McDavid, it's Bobrovsky. Those guys are. It's kind of toe to toe. If McDavid needs to score some goals, obviously the Oilers have to score goals to win the Stanley Cup in the finals. And Bobrovsky's the hottest goaltender in the world right now. I think it's going to be hard. But, it's kind of funny. You watch the game. I watched game 1. And within the first 30 seconds, Bobrovsky made like a huge mistake. The puck entered the zone. It kind of bounced towards him. He mishandled it a little bit. Bad pass. Edmonton got the puck. Zach Hyman had a really good look at the net and hit him right in the side of the face with his shot. And that was probably the best attempt that Edmonton had all game. Was right there in the first 30 seconds. I also saw McDavid had a wraparound chance that I have no idea didn't go in. But Florida did enough and did what they do best. They're physical. They scored on a breakout with about 4 minutes into the game. They killed penalties. They did their thing. But here's what is interesting about Florida. And it's what's interesting about a few teams in the NHL. There is a theory right now, and it might be based in reality, but there's a theory that the teams that are in states with lower income tax have an advantage over teams that don't have that luxury in the state they play in. So states with lower income tax, Florida, it's one of them. Nevada's another one. And consider that, the Florida teams in the NHL have actually done quite well, which you might be surprised to hear if you're just getting into hockey. The Tampa Bay Lightning had a really strong run. You could argue the Tampa Bay Lightning might have been the best team, the best franchise of the last 6-7 years. They went to the finals a lot. They won a couple of Stanley Cup finals as well. Now it's Florida's time. This is their second consecutive appearance in the Stanley Cup final. They lost to the Golden Knights last year. Golden Knights, playing in Nevada, won it last year. So the theory is that those teams are able to attract better free agents and offer better deals to their players because the players know they're going to get to keep more of their money by playing in those states, which I think is probably something to consider. There's probably something to that. I don't know where Utah ranks in terms of income tax. I would think maybe not among the lowest, but I don't know if that should be like a point of consideration or a point of concern, because it's been expressed multiple times. It's been reported in The Athletic, and almost every time you hear Bill Armstrong talk about their plans for free agency, they're like, we're going to overpay some guys. So if you're an NHL free agent, like I am, again, not invited to the NHL draft, Utah is a place you want to look at, because you're going to get paid well above market rate to come in there and be a part of what's happening here in the Beehive State. So again, that's the show for today. Some looks at some NHL prospects, a little bit of Stanley Cup Final talk. Would love to hear what you guys think. You guys do a really good job of sounding off in the comments, letting me know what you think, all that. I really appreciate it. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, merch at slcpuck.shop. All the stuff's at slcpuck.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that stuff at slcpuck. I got all the social media handles somehow. Amazing. But yeah, I'd love to keep going. Enjoy the Stanley Cup Final, guys. We'll talk more later. Appreciate you so much. See you soon.